Good morning, Mega Podlings. I don't know if anyone's there. Hang on a second. I'm trying to bring up the chat room here. Here we go. Is there anyone here? John Hickey. Hello. It says two people are there. Let's give people a chance to filter in. Geriatric. Hey, how you doing, my man? I'm not doing a live. Oh, excuse me. This isn't going to be a long live stream. Not going to go too long tonight. No more than a half hour. But there's news that needs to be talked about. We need to talk about Ghostbusters, man. This came out of nowhere. This came out of nowhere and took us all by surprise, didn't it? If you'll excuse me, my mouth is very dry right now. It's going to be hard to talk. So it says now, this was totally unannounced, so I don't expect to have a flood of people. But I did want to give people a little chance to filter in before we begin. But yeah, I was going to do a video talking about Ghostbusters, and I thought, hey, let's do it live. John says, "What Ghostbusters?" Well, John, to the great shock of the world, it was announced yesterday that, unbeknownst to anyone, Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman, director of Thank You for Smoking, Juno, Young Adult, has been for several months secretly working on Ghostbusters 3. Ghostbusters 3, the third film in the original franchise, totally disregarding the 2016 reboot. And this movie is happening, and it is coming out next summer 2020. So this thing was totally under the radar. Nobody knew it was happening, and boom, suddenly we have a Ghostbusters 3 on our hands. And lest anyone think that this is not a real project, today, the very next day, it's announced last night, today a teaser trailer dropped. There is already a teaser trailer for Ghostbusters 3. Now it's very much a very much a teaser trailer. It doesn't show much. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see it yet, but it pretty much just shows a barn, and we hear Elmer Bernstein's classic, what's the name of the instrument that he used in his score? Theremin. The theremin. We hear the theremin music from Ghostbusters 1, and someone unseen is working on a proton pack in the garage of this barn, and we happen to see a vehicle with a tarp over it, and the tarp comes up. It's the Ecto-1. Cut to summer 2020. Very much a teaser, but that's all you need. I apologize. Before I started this live stream, I hadn't been talking, so I didn't realize how bad my voice was. And now I just started speaking, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know my voice was that off. I don't mean to be standing here totally clearing my throat on you, but so wow. I don't know about you guys, but there's Jules. Guest appearance by Jules. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really, really excited. I am a old school Ghostbusters fan, and I have been wanting a Ghostbusters 3 for as long as I can remember. I remember in the 90s that Ghostbusters 3 was going to happen, and it was going to be the old guys training a new crew, and it was supposed to be Chris Farley was going to be one of the new Ghostbusters. Chris Farley died, completely derailed that project. Obviously, it did not happen. And ever since then, we've gotten little false starts like, oh, Ghostbusters 3 is going to happen. No, it's not happening. Oh, Ghostbusters 3 is happening. No, it's not happening. And then in 2016, it looked like Ghostbusters 3 was never, ever, ever, ever going to happen, because we instead got the reboot that had nothing to do with the original Ghostbusters. So is the chat room working? Nobody's saying much, so I don't know if the chat room is working or if you guys just don't have much to say. There's not many people here. I'm showing 5 viewers. This is certainly nothing like what we had Monday night. But then again, this was totally unannounced. Nobody knew I was going live tonight, so no surprise there. Have I lost you guys? You still here? Anyway, I'd like to know what you guys think about Ghostbusters 3. I'm really excited because this is what I've wanted all along. Now, with the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, which I'm proud to say I've never seen all the way through. I've never seen it all the way through, and I'm very, very happy to say I've never seen it all the way through. I really did not like what Sony did with that movie. I didn't like the fact that, and here's what the media doesn't report. This is what Entertainment Weekly and all your mainstream media went on and on about how fans were angry because it was women. And I don't doubt some fans were angry because it was women. I mean, there are misogynistic people out there who just the thought of women was going to be enough for them. But that is, in my experience, not what most fans were upset about. Most fans were upset because for years Dan Aykroyd had promised us an in-continuity sequel. And Paul Feig comes along and says, no, 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 I'm throwing everything out. This is a straight up reboot. The originals never happened. And I remember, myself included, fans, including me, tweeted at Paul Feig and said, listen, you want to do all women? Okay, but why not have the original guys training them? Why don't they be the second generation? You could use the exact same cast. Kristen Wiig, you want Melissa McCarthy? Okay. But why aren't they being trained by Aykroyd and Harold Ramis? Not Harold Ramis was dead. Ernie Hudson. I understand Bill Murray really wasn't interested. Harold Ramis had passed, but you didn't need them all. If you just had the two guys, Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd, because let's face it, The Force Awakens, Mark Hamill didn't show up till the last minute of the movie. Basically, the only guy who really came back in that movie was Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was the guy who did the heavy lifting in that movie in terms of the old cast. Princess Leia had a couple scenes. She wasn't in it much. But it was basically the new guys were the stars. Rey and Finn, they were the stars, and Han Solo was there, and he kind of passed the torch. That's all you need. Whoever your new cast is, they're going to be the stars. You just needed one or two of the old guys here to connect it back to the original and say, hey, we're passing the torch to you guys. But his ego got in the way. He was like, no, 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 I want a straight up reboot. The fans were not interested in a straight up reboot. The fans started tweeting at him saying, we don't want a straight up reboot. He didn't care. Did what he was going to do. Then it comes out in the Sony hacks. I don't know how many of you followed this and remember it. But during the Sony hacks, remember the interview, all that stuff, all these hacked Sony emails came out, and we all saw what Amy Pascal and the upper execs at Sony were sending back and forth in emails, and it comes out, and it's not even speculation, it's proof because it's in the hacked emails. Dan Aykroyd was coerced, and the entire original cast, they told them, we're going to sue you guys if you don't get on board and help promote this movie. So all the cameo appearances by the original cast in the 2016 and Dan Aykroyd's appearance in the 2016 were forced on them legally. They didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be doing that. Dan Aykroyd was not in favor of that movie. He wanted to make a straight up sequel, a part 3. So you got hardcore fans like me who are like, we don't want this. This is against Dan Aykroyd's wishes. You took it away from Dan Aykroyd. You're forcing him to be a producer under the threat of a lawsuit. This is shady, shady stuff. And then what Sony do, they point the finger and say, you're a misogynist, you hate women. I got 2 daughters. I'm always looking for positive female role models. If you said I want to do all female Ghostbusters, but it's the next generation, I'm totally on board. So I didn't like what happened there, and I didn't like how Sony tried to use misogyny as a marketing tool, like go see our movie or else you hate women. That really rubbed me the wrong way. And like I said, don't get me wrong, there were some people sending hateful messages at the cast and saying misogynistic things. There's a bad apple in every crowd. That was not the bulk of the fans, though. We just didn't like what was happening behind the scenes. But now we got this out of nowhere. And this is one of the things that really upset me about the 2016 movie was I thought this will kill an in-continuity Ghostbusters 3 forever. forever. There will never be an in continuity Ghostbusters 3 if you make the 2016 movie for a couple of reasons. Number one, if it was a hit, you're going to do sequels to the 2016 movie. You're not going to go back to the originals. If it's a hit, why would you? It's a hit. You're going to make sequels to your hit. And if it's a failure, knowing how the way Hollywood is, you're going to say, well, there's no interest in Ghostbusters anymore. Ghostbusters failed. So that would kill Ghostbusters 3. That is the conventional thinking, I think, of most people. Because the fact that the Ghostbusters 2016 reboot was a failure and Ghostbusters 3 is now happening, this is a shock. I mean, nobody saw this coming. And I, for one, am thrilled. I'm very excited. This is the movie we should have had in 2016, an in continuity sequel, and by the son of the director of the original two, Jason Reitman. Everything about it just feels, and if you look, fans are excited. Fans weren't excited about the 20. I mean, some fans were, but generally speaking, there was a lot of negativity towards that 2016 movie, and now fans are genuinely excited. So I want to know what you guys think. Number one, were you a fan of the 2016 movie? Did you follow it through production? Did you guys know a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes? And I don't blame you if you weren't following the production all the way through and you just hear the media saying, oh, misogynists hate this movie, they hate it because they hate women, blah, blah, blah. If you're not following what was happening and you heard that, I can't blame you for thinking, that was what was happening. But it really was not true that misogyny was behind this because, I mean, God, in our house, Rey, Star Wars, Rey, she's huge. Our family loves Rey because we got two girls. That's someone, a role model for the girls. We love the DC superhero girls because my girls, they love the DC superhero girls. Female role models. As a father of two daughters, that's what I want. So the issue with Ghostbusters 2016 was not its women. It was all the shady stuff going on behind the scenes. So what does everyone think about Ghostbusters 3? Are you guys as psyched and as excited as I am? Let me read the chat here. First of all, Boredom Strikes is here. Hey, Boredom Strikes, welcome. Jesse Swarbrick says, Rick Moranis come back. We need Louis Tully. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Rick Moranis is very, very hard to come by these days. He's very reluctant to do those kind of things. You know what I want to see Rick Moranis do? Because Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was Disney, and Disney owns Marvel. I would love to see Rick Moranis in Ant-Man 3 as Wayne Selinsky from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Have him and Hank Pym having a conversation about shrink technology. I think that would be hysterical. That's what I would like to see Rick Moranis do. Anyway, where are we going here? Jesse Swarbrick says, Jason Reitman was even in Ghostbusters 2. That's right. He was the kid who says, my dad thinks you're full. Was it full of shit or full of crap? I think the actual line was full of crap. I could be wrong. But yes, you're right. And that's awesome. Boredom Strike said, I had no interest in the 2016 Ghostbusters. I'm cautiously optimistic about this new one. That's all you can be. One thing I will say about the new one is it's being done for the right reasons. It's being done, I think, out of love. The son of the guy who made the original, he said in his statement, I'm the original Ghostbusters fan. Before anyone else, I was a Ghostbusters fan because I was on the set of the 1984 film. Before you guys saw it and knew what it was, I was there and I was a fan of it. That's really, really awesome. And then with the 2016 film, you had this film that was, it was made for all the wrong reasons. Because if you followed the Sony leaks, and I read the emails, I read them, Paul Feig did not want to make Ghostbusters. Amy Pascal decided he was the guy. She got it in her head, Paul Feig is the guy. She goes to Paul Feig, says, I want you to make Ghostbusters 3. He says, not interested. Don't want to do it. She comes back to him, come on, do Ghostbusters 3. Not interested. Don't want to do it. And then she says, basically, like, what's it going to take to get you to do Ghostbusters 3? And then he comes back and says, well, if I were going to do it, Number one, it has to be all women. And again, I got no problem with it being all women. That is not the problem, no matter what the media tries to tell you. I got no issues with all women. And he goes, and number two, it's got to be a straight up reboot. I want to tell an origin story. This is where I got problems. You're writing off two classic movies. I don't want these written off. I love these. Let me tell you something. This was the first midnight movie I ever saw. 1984. I was what, 8 years old? 8 years old in 1984. Went to the boardwalk in Wildwood, New Jersey. We were on vacation, wanted to see Ghostbusters, and it was sold out. And my mom, there was a midnight show. My mom says, "Oh, Bob, why don't we take them to the midnight show? Let's take the kids to the midnight show. It's summer. They don't have school in the morning." And then suddenly I went to see Ghostbusters. I was excited to see Ghostbusters. Now I was excited because I was getting to stay up to see a movie at midnight. I never did that before. This movie is a very special movie to me. You're going to tell me these two things never happened just because Paul Feig wants to satisfy his ego and make an origin story? And the fans were saying to him, "Dude, just don't make it." And then here's where it gets even shadier, because the first trailer hits. The first trailer hits for the 2016 Ghostbusters, and I think by that point, Sony knew that fans actually wanted a continuation of the original series, and The Force Awakens had come out. Force Awakens had come out by then, and The Force Awakens was a continuation of the original Star Wars. They didn't reboot Star Wars. And it was a huge hit. So I think Sony at that point saw the writing on the wall and was like, "Ooh, I think fans really wanted a continuation." So what did you get in the 2016 trailer? The first words are, 30 years ago, 4 scientists saved the world. Well, that right there would lead someone to believe they're watching a sequel. If you're saying 30 years ago, 4 scientists saved the world, you're now saying 30 years ago this happened, and now this is happening, our new movie. So they tried to deceptively make people think it was a sequel to this, when in fact it's a straight up reboot. So they realized, I think at that point, "Ooh, I think we screwed up. I think the fans wanted a sequel. Let's make them think this is a sequel." And I'm just ranting about the 2016 movie now, which is kind of what I wanted to avoid. Let me go back to what people are saying. Jesse says, "I only like Chris Hemsworth and Ed Begley Jr. on the 2016 movie." I've seen clips of the 2016 movie. I haven't seen the movie all the way through, and I gotta be honest, I didn't like what I saw. That's another thing. I from what I saw, I honestly believe it wasn't that good, which surprised me. Because I like what Paul Feig has done in the past. I'm a huge Freaks and Geeks fan. I think Freaks and Geeks is a terrific show. I liked Bridesmaids. So going into this, I didn't like Paul Feig's approach. I didn't like that they were throwing Dan Aykroyd under the bus and saying, "We're not doing what you want, even though you're the creator, but you also have to get on board with this or we're going to sue you." All that shady stuff really turned my stomach, made me not want to see the movie. But despite all of that, I didn't want to see the movie because of what was going on behind the scenes, but I assumed it would still be a good movie. I really was under the assumption this is still going to be good because Paul Feig is talented. He's talented. Talented filmmakers make good movies. It's going to be good. I just don't want to see it because of what was going on behind the scenes. Then, from what I saw, I didn't like it, and I know most people I know, I've heard a couple people say they liked it. It's not like across the board everyone hates this movie. There are people. The movie's got fans, but most people I know said they did not like it. So on top of that, it turns out it wasn't even that good of a movie, really, is what most people would say. Got to be respectful, because if it's like your favorite movie, I don't want to invalidate your opinion. So then Jesse also says, "The only good thing about the 2016 movie was that at least it made everyone have a new appreciation for Ghostbusters 2, even though I loved both movies as a kid." I agree. Ghostbusters 2, man, what an underrated sequel. What an underrated sequel. I remember when this movie came out, critics went nuts for it. Critics were saying it was almost as good as the original. Somewhere along the way, opinions flipped and people started saying, "Oh, it's not that good. It's not that good." And I don't know when it happened, because I do remember when it came out, it was very positively received at the time when it was in theaters. Then after the fact, people started getting, it went from it's not that good today, it's turned into Ghostbusters 2 sucks. I'm like, where did that come from? This is a great movie. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not as good as this. Ghostbusters 1 is much better. It's not as good, but my really only flaw with this is I kind of thought the Statue of Liberty walking through the city at the end was a bit cheesy. I thought that was cheesy. It felt like, oh, we had a big giant thing walking through the city at the end of the first one. We got to do that again. How are we going to do it this time? Last time it was a marshmallow. This time it'll be Statue of Liberty. So I really don't care for that scene. But other than that, I think this is great. And I think it's got some scenes that actually rival the original in terms of how funny they are, such as the courtroom scene. The courtroom scene with Harris Yulin as the judge, hysterical. And Pete Venkman's World of the Psychic talk show, hilarious. Hilarious. I love Ghostbusters 2. So much love for that movie. Oh, man, we thought it was going to be He-Man. Who are you going to call? He-Man, He-Man. So, yeah, I brought some of my Ghostbusters toys out. I don't have much. I got the Slimer Funko Pop over here. I got several cars. I think some of these were made by Johnny. This is a Johnny Lightning. This is a Hot Wheels. And I think this is also a Hot Wheels. Yeah, there's the original, the Ghostbusters 2. Those are the Hot Wheels. And the Johnny Lightning Ghostbusters 2 Hot Wheels. So I don't have a lot. I'm not a big Ghostbusters collector. I love the movie. I'm a big fan of the movie, but I don't collect a lot with Ghostbusters. Anyone who knows me knows that in terms of like movie memorabilia and stuff I collect, it's more Star Trek, Back to the Future, Star Wars, and anything Muppets. Those are kind of my wheelhouses. So Jesse says he used to have the Proton Pack and the Trap toys. I never had them. Always wanted them. Always wanted them. So yeah, I just wanted to come on here and talk about how excited I am about Ghostbusters. Hear what you guys are thinking about it. It sounds like it's going to have a bit of a Stranger Things vibe. They're saying it's going to be teenagers this time, which seems a little odd, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Jesse says, Joe, did you get a Back to the Future vibe from the new Ghostbusters teaser trailer? Kind of did. And, you know, I could even tell you why. Old Man Peabody. I mean, we got, you know, a barn in the middle of nowhere. It felt like we were on Old Man Peabody's farm, didn't it? So, apparently they're going for kind of a Stranger Things vibe, which I'm okay with. I like Stranger Things a lot. And I'm okay with this being different. It doesn't have to be more of the same. If you want to make it very, very different kind of feel to it, so long as it's good, that's all I really care about. I just want it to be good. And Jason Reitman makes good movies. Everything I've seen by Jason Reitman has been solid. Thank You for Smoking is terrific. Up in the Air is terrific. I have a good feeling about this one. I have a real good feeling about it. Now we'll see as it develops, and we will follow the development of Ghostbusters 3 on this channel. Keep it here, and we'll talk about this as we find more out. So the other thing I want to talk about is I had an interview last night. I did an interview on the podcast, and I'm going to be releasing this podcast very soon, hopefully tomorrow. Keep your eye out. If you listen to the Megapodtastic podcast, keep an eye out for tomorrow. But I had Dr. Star Trek himself, Larry Nemecek, on the phone. Now, to those of you who don't know who Larry Nemecek is a Star Trek guru, knows just about everything there is to know about Star Trek. He wrote the Star Trek The Next Generation Companion, the book that came out in the 90s, episode guide detailing every single episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's a great book. It's a great resource. If you like Star Trek The Next Generation, it's kind of a must-have book. He then went on to be the editor of the official Star Trek magazine, Star Trek Communicator. It was the official magazine of the Star Trek fan club. It's been out of print for years, that magazine. There is a Star Trek magazine now, but it's not Star Trek Communicator. But Larry was the editor of that. The guy knows just about everything about Star Trek. He's got a website called Trekland. He does. He's got something called Portal 42, which he describes as a virtual Star Trek convention on the internet. Very knowledgeable. He knows just about everything going on. And we had a talk. We had a long talk. He told us some of the endeavors he has going on. And we talked about the state of Star Trek and all the news about Star Trek that has come out over the last few days. And the season premiere of Star Trek Discovery is tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, season 2 of Discovery premieres on All Access. Seemed like the perfect time to have Dr. Star Trek on. And we talk about that, and we talk about a lot of the rumors going on behind the scenes. I have mentioned them before. I try not to give them too much screen time. They don't deserve too much screen time. But there's a couple YouTube sites out there that I refuse to mention. I won't name them because I don't want to drive traffic to them. There's a couple trollish YouTube sites that seem their whole purpose, their whole reason for existence is to post fake news, false information about Star Trek Discovery. Stuff that's very easily proven false if you do the research. The problem is most people aren't that invested, and that's okay. I understand. Most people don't want to most people aren't that interested. They got a level of interest, but they're not like super interested. So they hear this guy talk with authority, and they believe what he's saying. But what he's saying is false, and it's provably false. It's not just like this might be untrue. You can easily debunk everything he says. So Larry and I talk about this guy. He knew exactly who I meant too, because we don't name him by name, but he knew exactly who I meant. And we talk about that. So I'm going to try to put that up, the interview with Larry. It's going to go out on the podcast, but I'm also going to try to get that up on YouTube, because I think a lot of people on YouTube are getting fake news off of YouTube from these, what I call them, the Trek trolls. And I think it's good to have Dr. Star Trek on, of an authority on Star Trek who can easily poke holes in that nonsense. So that was the other big thing I wanted to talk about today. Keep an eye out for tomorrow for my interview with Larry Nemechek. And I was co-hosted on the podcast by my good friend, Mr. Craig Stepp, who hosts the he's one of the hosts. There's 3 hosts. He's one of the hosts of the Topic is Trek podcast. And he also is a co-host of the Technorama podcast. Jesse asked, do you like Star Trek more than Star Wars? Absolutely. Star Trek is my favorite franchise, my favorite media franchise of all. There's nothing in the world I love more than Star Trek. Now, honestly, when people say Star Trek versus Star Wars, I gotta be honest, I don't find them that similar. I think they're very different. I think Star Trek and Star Wars are, other than a space setting, I really don't think they have much in common. I think you could actually compare Star Wars more to Lord of the Rings than Star Trek, because it's got more of a fantasy element. Star Trek, I think a better comparison is like Star Trek versus Babylon 5. They're more similar types of shows. So let's go back. Now, there's not many people in the chat room here today, and I don't know if anyone's interested. And I don't know how we would do it if there is interest. But when the 2016 Ghostbusters was about to come out, my co-hosts and I on the podcast were not fans of the idea at all. But we didn't want to be too negative. You always hear about toxic fandom, and we wanted to express how much we disliked the idea of a Star Trek 2016, or not Ghostbusters 2016, but without crossing the line and being the quote-unquote toxic fans. And we were like, well, what can we do that will set a tone that says we're not on board with what you're doing here, but not go too negative? And I said, well, instead of just railing against the 2016 Ghostbusters, why don't we celebrate what we love? It's like Rose Tico in The Last Jedi. We're not going to win by destroying what we hate. We're going to win by saving what we love. I said, rather than just attack the 2016 movie, it's a bad idea, terrible, I hate it. Rather than do that, why don't we celebrate what we love? And that is the original movies. So I decided to go out and buy the original 2 on Blu-ray. You'll notice these are factory sealed. I already own these movies, and I bought these for the podcast to be giveaways. And we decided, okay, the 2016 movie's coming out. Let's give away the 2 Ghostbusters movies that we love. We'll give them away to our listeners. And we came up with a contest where you could win the Ghostbusters movies on Blu-ray. Nobody entered the contest. Nobody entered. So I've had these sitting in a desk drawer since 2016. These were the 2 giveaway copies. Now, I understand Ghostbusters is an incredibly popular movie. Incredibly popular. So most people probably already have these in their collection. Maybe that's why no one entered. Maybe everyone was like, we already got those movies. But are you guys interested in like a giveaway contest where someone could win Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 factory sealed on Blu-ray? Or does that interest you guys? If so, let me know. If so, we could do that. And we'll have to figure out what the contest is. But does that now? Let me go back and read the chat here. I have been neglecting the chat. Jesse asks, have I seen the movie Fanboys? Yes. Got to be honest, I'm not a fan. I am not a fan. I have mentioned on this show before a movie called Free Enterprise. And I love the movie Free Enterprise. It was directed by Robert Meyer Burnett, who has his own YouTube channel. You can find him on YouTube. His channel is called The Burnett Work. He's very good. He and I have a difference of opinion on a lot of things. He does not agree with we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's okay. You know, he's very knowledgeable, very interesting, very likable guy. I've met him in person. I like the guy. I like the guy. We're not like friends or anything because we've only met in person once. We're online acquaintances, and I had got to meet him when I was in LA one time. But so yeah, we're acquaintances, but not what I would call friends. We don't know each other that well. But he's good. And check out his channel, the Burnett Work. But he directed a movie called Free Enterprise that came out in 1998, and it was about a bunch of Star Trek fans. It was kind of like Swingers with Star Trek fans. That's the best way to describe it. If you've never seen Free Enterprise, can't recommend it enough. But the thing is, it felt real to me. I watched it, and I'm like, I recognize these characters. I know these characters. I see myself in those characters. I see my friend Dave Perillo, who you may know if you watch this channel. He was on a lot of my he was on my Disney videos. When I was in Disney World, I was there with Dave. So if you watch those videos, you know who Dave is. But I saw a lot of Dave in these characters. So then a couple of years later, Fanboys comes out, and it's a very similar kind of movie, but it didn't feel real to me. Like, it felt cartoonish. Which maybe there's nothing wrong with cartoonish, but I guess maybe that's just not what I was looking for because it was just such a different vibe. For one thing, they really play up the whole Star Trek versus Star Wars thing, and in my experience, that's not a real thing. I've never met a Star Trek fan who hates Star Wars or a Star Wars fan who hates Star Trek. In my experience, most Star Trek fans are just science fiction fans. They like science fiction. Star Trek might be their favorite, but they just like good science fiction. So, of course, they also love Star Wars. And Star Wars is a little different because Star Wars is a little mainstream. I think most people who like Star Trek also like Star Wars, but I don't think the other way is true. I think with Star Wars, you do have a lot of mainstream, like kids who that play with the toys, and they just want action and special effects, and they don't have the same crossover because, like I said, Star Wars is more fantasy. I don't think it has the same crossover the other way because it's more mainstream. But I don't really know anyone who has that level of animosity towards the other franchise like that movie put out there. So I didn't care for it. That's a long answer. I know a lot of people love it, but I'm not personally. I'm not a fan. Jamel Williams says, hi, Joe. Hello, Jamel. Welcome. Jeff Hill says hello. Welcome, Jeff. And Jesse says they play the Star Trek versus... Oh, yep. There we go. See, I'm behind. You're ahead of me. Jesse asks, is the first the remastered 4K? Yes, it is. These are both remastered in 4K. These are the discs that came out in. What's the date on them? Well, I don't see it. It's probably on here, but I don't know. These are. They've since come out. There's the full 4K editions. These are remastered in 4K, but they've since put out the 4K, the Ultra HD discs. These are not those, but there you go. Boredom Strike says, "What did you?" Wait, we just talked about Fanboys. Boredom. What did you guys think about Fanboys? You guys fans of Fanboys? Am I being too hard on that movie? I've seen it a couple times. I just, it doesn't connect with me, unfortunately. I like the cast. I like the cast a lot. Sam Huntington is in that movie. He was a guest on my podcast. He was a guest on Megapodtastic, the podcast, promoting Being Human. He was on the sci-fi series Being Human, which is a great series, by the way. And he was on talking about that. All right, guys. I said I was only going to do a half hour. It's been, I think, over a half hour. So I'm going to cut this off now. So if you are watching this on the replay, if you are not watching live, feel free to comment. I want to hear what people think about Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 3. I want to know if people are interested in a contest to win these, or if everyone's like, we got those movies. Are you kidding? Those are classics. Of course we already own them. Are you crazy? Why wouldn't we own them? Let me know. Let me know. Comment down below. I'm interested in hearing. Slipcover Cake says, damn, I'm too late. Sorry, Slipcover Cake. I said I was just going to do a short live stream tonight. So, Jesse says, I would be interested. All right. Well, we will try to come up with something then. I will try to come up with how you can win both Ghostbusters movies. I'll come up with something. All right, guys. I'm going to get going because I have to edit that Larry Nemechek interview if I'm going to get it up in time for tomorrow. Boredom Stray says, take care, Joe. Thank you. Take care to you. Thank you guys for joining me on this impromptu live stream. Do like a Ghostbusters trivia thing to win them. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Maybe I could sweeten the pot and come up with some other kind of Ghostbusters thing. Maybe we can talk to my friends at Action Figure Junkies. Maybe they have some Ghostbusters action figures that we could throw in too, to do it like a... I don't know. We'll come up with something. All right, guys. I am going to cut it off here. Thanks for watching, and keep wearing those pajamas.